VP.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'd love to come back as a mentor at some point. So I need to reconnect with you guys.
That would be remarkable. That would be wonderful. The program has grown a lot since you were, I think you were in the medtech.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, so it's grown quite a lot. But even despite us having, I think we are actually going live in just a couple moments here. So I'm still trying to adjust my screens.
Yeah, I think some of the panelists still are not able to get on. Maria just sent an email.
They might, I don't know, if she's at work, she might be having issues because like if you're using the VPN, it won't let you in, and they'll say like you need to download Chrome or update Chrome.
I see. Yeah, she just messaged in the chat here, Maria.
Yeah, there's a Maria Moches, right, that is not being able to.
Did she get like the direct link?
Yeah, I think her and someone else were not able to get in the session early.
Now, once it goes live, is there something we need to do to activate it, or?
They'll do it.
No,
I
think we'll transition, right, automatically.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just holding still until somebody else talks.
So we'll start off with just, again, I'm going to ask you to self-introduce. I think it's more efficient that way. And then
I work with Softness. I wanted to let you know that you are currently live.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so very much.
We have 84 people in the room. Have a great panel.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Much. Welcome, everyone. I know this has been a really exciting opportunity for all of the participants, but we are looking forward to the session that is coming up ahead. Welcome. My name is Elizabeth Valerio. I serve as the president of the International Center for Professional Development, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you to this particular session. We have our speakers all lined up and ready, and this is the Thriving in Industry Private Sector. For the next hour, spend some time talking about industry and essentially looking at what the experience is, what you can all look forward to in terms of your experiences working in industry. So with us today, we have a wonderful lineup of speakers. I know a couple of our speakers are still connecting, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to introduce our speakers by name, and then I'm going to ask you all, if you would, to introduce yourselves and essentially just giving the highlights of your career path, how you came to be where you are today, and then the official role that you have within your organizations. So Anna Vergara, if I may start with you. I know that you are with Merck. If you could give us just a brief introduction, self-biography as it were, to kick us off in our session today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Vergara, and I'm a senior scientist at Merck. I got my PhD in pharmaceutical sciences from Washington State University in 2020, and I started working at Merck in July of 2020. So I took a month and a half off and moved from Washington State to New Jersey. Now I'm currently in Pennsylvania. So I moved this summer over here, and it's been great so far. So the work that I do is I focus on drug metabolism and drug-drug interactions. So I work with certain enzymes, and I look to see if the Merck drug either inhibits that enzyme or induces it, and that can potentially have some drug-drug interactions. And I'm also a SACNAS board member. I got elected as a graduate student, and I finished my term last year, but I'm staying an additional year because some board members left. So I'm really happy to be here, and I'll answer any of your questions.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you so much for joining us. We have a very diverse lineup of speakers today. We have, and so Joseph Valdez, Dr. Valdez, if you would introduce yourself and then give us the highlights again with regards to how you got to be where you are.
Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Joe Valdez, and I'm originally from Los Angeles, but here in Houston, Texas. I got my PhD in molecular and cell biology in 2013. I spent a year in patent law, then I spent most of my career in next generation sequencing, from research to diagnostics, helping partners such as pharmaceutical companies launch their companion diagnostics, which we use now for oncology testing and determination for personalized medicine. Then I spent a couple years in business development at Agilent Technologies, and now I'm at Berkeley Lights as the head of emerging products. Berkeley Lights is a microfluidics platform technology that enables single cell resolution of cell profiling. Particularly, I'm interested in immunotherapy discovery in general, and cell therapies in general. And I kind of manage the product portfolio we have in that business, as well as look for strategic partnerships with other companies where we have where we can find opportunities together. So it's nice to meet all of you and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And so moving along, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Myrta, would you go ahead and provide a self-introduction? Myrta is from Amgen.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Myrta Tiles. I am currently an executive director of process development at Amgen. When you see my background, I'm actually started my bachelor's in industrial microbiology. Then I did my master's degree in molecular biology in the bacteriology area. Then I started my career actually working in R&D, but for molecular diagnostics. I did 3 years of that, and then I moved to a small company in Connecticut where I did research discovery for new drugs. And after that, I moved back to Puerto Rico, which is where I am originally from, working for Amgen in the process development area. I've been at Amgen for 19 years. I've done most of my career at Amgen, and I have been so lucky to actually support from process development a huge wide of a range from like drug substance production all the way to drug product inspection, packaging, and it's the ability to see the perfect merge between the science and the engineering to bring products to the patients, right? So it's the last stage of commercialization, enabling the large-scale production of those drugs that are discovered through the pipeline, and bringing the commercial processes in order for us to get the license and start, making the products available to patients. So it's been a huge, learning and journey. I'm very blessed through the opportunities of my career, and I hope that you guys see yourself, because we're just people like you, right? And we starting at one point and our career just take over as you continue learning and experiencing opportunities, and hopefully we can convey some of that message to all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much for that introduction, Myrta. It's amazing. It's quite a small world. I started my career working at Amgen, actually, in formulation sciences many years back. And I remember, Myrta, meeting you a few years back as well as a mentor in a program that we run. And then also Joseph, we've met in the past. I hope you don't mind. We're going to keep this session very, very informal because what we really want to do is shed a little bit of light in the journeys you've all, had in terms of your transition from academia, how you've come to industry, and then, as we're highlighting in this particular session, thriving in industry. So I'm going to ask a question of all of you just before we kick off the real focus of this session. What is it that you're most excited about in terms of speaking to the participants today? What about this session would you say is most exciting? And so I'll start off with you, Joe, if you don't mind. Joseph, perhaps you could kick us off with that just response in terms of what about this session is most exciting?
Sure. I mean, I think just participating here gives everyone face and voice that I didn't have growing up, and so being able to try and contribute back and say maybe you don't have any guidance in terms of what you want to do, maybe you don't know all the possibilities out there, and I would say I still don't know that. So shedding a little bit of light there, giving people access to myself, everyone on this panel, to answer questions, to be able to give back and help guide that next generation of scientists, is what I'm excited to do. And I think secondly, that there's a path outside of the traditional academic that for some of us, I think is very exciting. And again, shedding light on what that actually means, and it's not all bad and the dark side and et cetera, what you might hear. So yeah, those are the two things that I'd love to do here.
Thank you so much. Myrta, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Joseph, right? The ability to really shed light, right, as to what are the world of opportunities that we have in the industry. But truly, even if I have the opportunity to inspire one single person, I think that really fulfills me, because, sometimes we don't know, what is out there or how our careers can evolve. And if we could serve as an inspiration for you to know that you can actually thrive and continue pushing yourself to make a difference, right? Like, dare to make a difference. Make sure that you can use your talents to make a difference in people's life. When you think about the mission that we have, serving patients, what better than that? How many patients do we treat through our career? So hopefully that will inspire you to continue on your aspirations and your academy studies.
Thank you. Thank you. And Anna, did you want to jump in on this as well, just in terms of what you're most excited about in terms of sharing during this session?
Yeah, I would agree, with what everybody said, but I would say definitely the myths of working in industry. You hear certain things in academia, it can sound scary, and it's the unknown. So shedding some light on that. And then also that there's a lot of opportunities depending on, your background, your interests. I feel like there's a role for everyone. You just got to find it. And also that, you can accomplish anything that you want to do. A lot of people told me oh, you have to do a postdoc after your PhD. And I didn't want to do that. And, my intention was to get a job in industry right off from my PhD. And I'll tell people that that's possible. I didn't do an internship. I wanted to, it just didn't work out. But through networking and attending different events, I was able to get to know a lot of people, learn about what it's like to be in industry. And then also people would reach out to me and provide opportunities. So the job that I got at Merck was through going to a conference. Somebody went to my poster presentation. I gave them my business card. So I tell people, even though it's old school, take your business cards. You never know who will reach out to you. And then, from there, I decided to apply for the job and I got it.
Elizabeth, I just wanted to jump in really quickly. I don't know if you were able to see that Maria and Javier had joined the panel.
I was not aware. So wonderful and welcome. I'm so glad that you're
Hello.
Laser focused on our existing speakers. Thank you so much. I'm glad you were able to connect, and we've kicked off our session. And perhaps what we could do is just take a step back, and if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves. We're having a session that is relatively informal, so we're going to go with first names, and I'm asking if you would self-introduce yourself. We've got a wonderful group of individuals who are attending today and thinking about their future and how they will thrive in industry, and what it's like to thrive in industry. So if you could just give us the highlights of your journey to where you are today, and the role that you have in your official titles. Thank you. Yeah.
Sure. Sorry for being a little late. My name is Maria Moches. I'm currently a scientist at 23andMe Therapeutics. I received my PhD in molecular cell biology at UC Berkeley about 10 years ago now. Oof, seems a little bit a while ago. But my field of expertise is in immunology. After Berkeley, I went to do a short postdoc at UCSF, also in immunology. And then from there, I spent 5 years at Genentech as a researcher, also supporting the biology teams there, trying to identify new targets in the autoimmune disease space, like diseases like lupus. Since then, I've been at 23andMe for a couple of years now, helping us identify new targets also in similar autoimmune disease space. What I'm excited about today, just to jump forward to that question, is one, I'm going to give a shameless plug. I have an internship position opening for this summer, and I would love to have the opportunity to work with a SACNISTA for that. Looking for bachelor students with research experience and above, and I'll put a link to that job opening later on. But aside from that, like Joe and others have said, when I was in as a trainee, I didn't know of a lot of mentors or SACNISTAs in industry, and so having those connections, like Ana said, are important whether they're SACNISTAs or not. And so I hope that we can serve as connections to industry, people that you can connect with and learn about what it's like. And I also look forward to learning from the fellow panelists today.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Maria. And SACNISTAs, there you have it. There's an opportunity already available. So thank you very much for making the time to come in and share your experiences with everyone today. So Javier, hear your introduction and then also what you're most excited about for today's session.
Of course. Thank you, Elizabeth. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be here today and share some of my experience with today's audience. Perhaps I have the shortest career after completing a PhD. I graduated just last year, and I'm currently working as a quantitative analytics specialist at Wells Fargo. And so, well, I'm originally from Chile. I was born and raised in Santiago, Chile. And back in the time, I majored in industrial engineering over there, and with a concentration in financial mathematics. Then I worked for a couple of years in my country, and then I joined the PhD program in statistics at the University of California, Santa Barbara. There I work basically on something totally different from what I'm doing right now. Basically, I was developing a statistical model to understand the functional connectivity of the different regions of the brain. It was a very neuroscience project. And now, well, once I completed the PhD, I was looking for opportunities, and well, that's how I ended now at Wells Fargo. Essentially, in my role, I'm applying statistics to do different solutions for different projects within the bank. And well, I'm very happy to be here, essentially, because I don't have such a long experience as the other members of the panel, but I'm very happy to tell, my experience so far, and also to help some people who are looking for opportunities in industry and are trying to decide what is the best path for their careers. Personally, for me, it was kind of hard at the very end of the PhD, and so I think that I feel good about giving a hand to other people looking for an opportunity.
Thank you so much, Javier. So I think what we I've got a couple of questions that I'd like to put forward to the panel, and we do want to make sure we have time towards the end of this session for our participants, our SACNISTAs, to also ask questions. But if I can start off with you, Ana, I'd like to just ask, we're focusing here on how to thrive in industry, and from your own experiences, have you reached the point where you would say, what success in industry looks like, and how would you define that? If I can just start off with you and hear your views on that.
Yeah, so I think in industry, there's business objectives. So how do you support the pipeline, right? So that's kind of like the basic thing. We were hired to do something specifically. And you get feedback from your manager, throughout the year. And also we have an end of year review. So I'm going to be having a meeting next week with my manager to go over the business objectives from last year. Did I achieve what I wanted to do? And then there's also a personal development component. So that's where I put in my interests. I'm big into providing service, diversity and inclusion. I'm involved in typically. So, you know, I'm part of SACNAS. Like I mentioned, I'm the SACNAS board member. I'm in different committees. I'm also part of ISSX. That's more discipline specific. I'm the chair for the New Investigators Group. And there's other things that I do as well. Internally, there's employer business resource groups, and I'm part of Alianza. So that's for Hispanics and Latinos and allies as well. But I'm part of their leadership team, and I decided to be in their business insights for global talent acquisition. So I partner with talent acquisition specialists, and we do outreach. So I wanted to kind of marry what I was already doing and interested in, and how do I bring that to Merck to leverage that and build those bridges, build those gaps. So Merck didn't participate with SACNAS before I joined Merck, and now, you know, since I joined in 2020, we had a Merck booth, 2020, 2021, and we're planning to hopefully go to Puerto Rico this year. And that's just because of my own interests, my own initiatives, and they really celebrate other things that you do aside from being a great scientist. And you know, it showcases your leadership skills and collaborating with others as well. So I was talking to my manager this morning. He's like, people have like different interests, different bandwidth, and he's like, you're kind of unique, where you're very strong scientifically, but also like you're involved in a lot of other things. And I think that's just part of my personality. And when I got interviewed from a position, they told me, they mentioned that again, that I have a very strong skill set, both scientifically and also like transferable skills. And they're like, just keep that up and people will notice you, you know? So I'm just excited to see where that leads me. And I already have people at the VP level that I'm talking to, that they're supporting my initiatives. I'm getting mentorship, and they're already guiding me on like what are my next steps for my career. So I feel like it's you know, a great place to be at.
Great, thank you so much. So transitioning into industry doesn't mean that we have to necessarily sever ties with all of the, you know, the things that are important to us. You've been able to balance continuing the work you were passionate about, working with SACNAS, for example, and even perhaps, you know, expanding some of the work that you've been doing. And it's in a way also helping you to set yourself apart from others who might be at Merck, and what you're bringing to the table is a, you know, a very diverse, you know, range of different types of you know, exposures as well. So this is great in terms of the participants who are thinking, gosh, does that mean when I go into industry, everything changes? I'm going to have to completely separate from the things that I'm passionate about, or I'm really excited or interested in. So thank you so much for giving us that example. Mirta, if I could move on to you as well, and just from your perspective, how you define success. You've been in industry a number of years,
Yeah.
and so you've seen
so
success.
it's, I mean, I simplify, and it means a lot. You know, for me, thriving means using your full potential to make an impact. So what do I mean by that? You probably don't even know what your full potential is, but each of us have so much potential, because it's the technical part, as Anna mentioned, the personality traits, the interest that we bring. So are you able to use all that potential that you have, meaning that when you start a job, you have not even explored all of it. So you will continue gaining more knowledge, so you could actually use your potential, but then using that power to create an impact. And when we talk about impact, impact could be by bringing new medicines to patients, by impacting the lives of others, your employees, your peers, the people that you want to coach, if you want to coach or mentor, the other industry that might partner with you. I mean, there's so many ways. So if you think about thriving, it's a very ample context. So I just simplify, use your full potential to create an impact.
Thank you. Joe, do you want to take of success?
Yeah,
kind of, thank
sure.
you.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. I think ultimately success is really defined by yourself and is not really specific to industry, right? It kind of comes down to the goals in your life, what makes you happy. I do want to say, like, making an impact, I think is certainly aligned with mine. And I think that can take on a lot of flavors as well. It could be the impact you're making on patients' lives, the impact you're making in making customers feel happy and satisfied. Could even be the impact you're having on your family, right? Finding the right career that lets you have the flexibility to not only do well in your job, but also be the person your family needs you to be, or be the person you want to be, right? So finding the right environment that allows you to, again, to, like Martha mentioned, explore all of those, give you the mentorship you need to achieve the goals you have. I think there's a lot of overlapping kind of characteristics between industry and academia, where I think it is about finding mentors, exploring yourself, understanding what you want, and being able to communicate that to others so that they can provide you the tools and the path to get where you want to be.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to the question, Joe, if you don't mind. Participants has asked, in terms of your own work environment, what has your experience been in terms of being a minority or being diverse, or someone in the STEM field is a minority? How has your identity? I'm going to just ask if you would take that question on in the context of how you've defined success.
Sure. I mean, it's a challenge, right? And I think it's a challenge that people are just beginning to take on. I think a lot of large pharma have D&I or diversity and inclusion type groups that you can join and be a part of. I think it's clear that different companies are making strides to add people of color or diversity, people of color, women, to leadership positions. I think that's a place we still don't have, as much representation as we need to. But it's just, I would say, a resounding message, and people are being moved into it, whether they want to or not, to have to, accept the realities and make this a priority for companies. So I would say it's definitely something that's growing, and I think people are overall moving towards a better place in terms of providing support and structure here.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to Maria. Maria, could we hear from you as well about how you define success in industry? And then again, just give us a little bit of insight as to the response to the question that we received from Megan Palacio about how your company has supported your identity minority in industry.
Sure. As I mentioned, I've been working in the area of target discovery, so the very, very earliest stages of drug development. And so I think just big picture wise, I think at that level, what we're interested in for new targets is getting to a yes or no decision on a target as quickly as possible. And so I think that's, I think how, if I'm contributing to those goals, I would feel like I'm being successful. I guess personally, the other thing that's important to me to define whether or not I'm thriving is whether I feel like my voice is heard and whether it's, seen as important. And so I think that has definitely changed. My perception of that has changed over time from going from a very large company to a smaller company. At a smaller company, I feel like there are less people at the table. And so your voice is essential, and your expertise, what you're bringing to the table, is important to be heard. And so I think putting myself in a different environment, I think, has allowed me to thrive on a personal level. Related to how the companies that I've worked at have supported me, I think it's been different between a large company and a small company. So at Genentech, I had the opportunity to start a SACNAS chapter there, and it's it was the only industry professional chapter there, and that chapter is still going. I'm kind of a serial SACNAS chapter starter, so but it's I think building that community within all the institutions I've been at, including industry, have been really important for me to feel at home and have a sense of belonging. So I think it's really fantastic that Anna and others have make sure that those environments exist across different companies. And then more recently at 23andMe, while it's a smaller company, we also have employee resource groups. So, groups of employees with similar interests, like we have an employee resource group called Gente, where, we try to celebrate, our culture and build a community that way. We also are exhibitors at the SACNAS conference. So I get to interact with the SACNistas yearly, which is fantastic. And also more recently, increasing our new hires from underrepresented groups has currently been integrated into our goals as a company. So that I think was really important to see us put that into our goals as a company, rather than just something that we say we want to increase but don't do anything about. So I feel like our company values diversity and is putting forward lots of efforts to make sure that we see equitable representation at our company, even within scientists, which I think, is, like Joseph said, it's been challenging for to get more diverse leadership, but diversity is necessary at all levels.
Thank you so much, and that's why programs like this are so incredibly important. But we have certainly seen as much as the transition into industry for a diverse individual can be a challenge. There is a tremendous amount of support at all of your companies, and mostly throughout industry, we've seen an increase in support for diverse talent, and we're very thankful for that. Javier, I'd like to move on to you. I know you've more recently transitioned, and what I'd like to pose is a question with regards, actually a twofold question. Firstly, how has your experience in industry differed from what you might have expected? We've all got perceptions of what industry is going to be like. What's that been like for you? And then also just an additional question to add on to that is, what advice would you give to our SACNistas that are looking at a transition, and there may be so many questions that they have that we may not be able to get to today? What advice would you give them, just really briefly, as they start thinking about their transition to industry?
Sure, of course. So thank you, Elizabeth. So let me start with the first one about how my expectations were different or how things have evolved. So one thing then I found during my first year at Wells Fargo is that in general problems in industry have a very practical focus, which is something different than what you usually do when you're in academia. In academia, you really want to work towards a theory that's like a major goal of what you want to do. But here the problems have a very practical focus. And then, although, for instance, in my case, I have expertise, I'm trained as a statistician, the most important thing is not actually the statistics, it's actually to understand the problem carefully, like in this case, like what is the business need that the bank is trying to solve. And that's like the most important part. And then, for instance, you don't necessarily need to bring like the most fancy and sophisticated solutions for that. What is important is you have clear, transparent solutions that are robust and that you can communicate them well, and that they make sense and can solve the problem. So that's one thing that makes things different from what you see in academia. One other thing that I found that changed to me, an expectation that really changed to me after joining the company, is like before joining a company like Wells Fargo, I read that there are companies that are big. When you join a big company, you realize that it's bigger than what you really think. When you start realizing on like the different divisions that the company has, the organization that it has, and how everything is trying to how different pieces work together to make the company run, you realize that it's much, much bigger and complex than you might expect, and especially when you look at it from the outside. One other thing, I think another thing that has changed to me is like my expectation was that you're really learning constantly in industry. I mean, you're not going into this deep theoretical stuff that you will see in academia, but you're really learning a lot of practical issues that you need to solve, and you gain a lot of practical experience that is super useful to make you think better and to address to do your job better. And as an advice, now following up with your second question, for what would be the advice for people who are looking for like a role? So yeah, for people who are completing the PhD, I will tell them to really plan ahead with plenty of time because unexpected events happen. Just as to say, the pandemic. When I was looking for a job, I started looking for a job. It was March. It was like February 2020, and then March 2020, essentially the pandemic started, and then the job market was kind of harder to manage. And actually, things changed before we will PhD student will be invited on a campus visit to the company, and then things have to change for naturally for over Zoom interviews. So that's why it's important to really plan ahead with plenty of time, especially in these changing times. And also, what I will say is that uh, uh, it's important to realize that how you how to connect it's kind of different how you try to solve problems in industry than when you with the problems that you solve in academia. Sometimes you really need to you learn a lot of theory and stuff. You want to apply it, but when you go into these practical problems, you need to think more of like there are other that how to make things work in a reasonable time, and also to understand that sometimes things can take longer. Say, for instance, accessing the data can be something that can take some time because you need to adapt and understand the systems. So in that sense, I think that it's important to be very patient at the beginning. There is a lot to learn, to catch up, and to be performing well for the company.
Great. Are you working more now than before? I know in academia, one of the questions that was asked was, everyone's used to working more than 40 hours a work week in academia. Are you working more now in industry than before?
I'm lucky to say that I'm working less now. Now I'm working on regular hours, essentially from Monday through Friday. Back in when I was in academia, in completing my PhD, I was usually working during the weekends as well. So yeah, I mean, I think now I'm working on better hours, and yeah, I can enjoy more of my spare time. So yeah, it's a better lifestyle, I would say, right now.
I think there's a lot of diversity there too, right? Like industry can mean a lot of things, and it could mean from startup to big pharma, and also depending on the role you have, depends how much hours you want to put in. I would say in general it's probably less than academia, but going back to impact, we can say that there's also positions like sales, right, where um, it's all about the impact you bring and not necessarily about the time you need to get there. Or for some people it might take 10 hours a week. Some people might take 80 hours a week, right? But I'd say in general it's less and kind of in your control because you can pick the kind of roles you want and whether those roles depend on something like measurable outcomes and commission and how much you want to work for that.
I would also add that I think it's a different environment in the sense that there's older folks in industry, so that a lot of people do have families and responsibilities, and so I think that with that comes with people having to do pickups of their kids or get home early or whatever that might involve, and so I think it lends itself to the people going home early or maybe starting their day earlier. I think there's some flexibility around that. So it definitely felt like a different environment versus grad school where that's not always the case. And, I used to spend the whole day there, have dinner there, it was kind of my home away from home. So I think it's definitely just a different environment.
Yeah, I would like to add, right? Because it's really gonna depends. This is not a one recipe fits all. Not all industry, not even all positions within the same industry. And I just want to give you an example. We were hit by the pandemic, right? So the industry needed to react at incredible speed to provide a solution to society. We did not have the luxury of time. People were dying. Everybody was locked up. So I had I was so blessed to work in a collaboration with Lilly to enable one of their antibodies for the treatment of the pandemic. We had to work crazy hours, but it was a need for the society, right? So it really gonna depends. But I can tell you that it was not just me, it was everybody in the team. But the pride that it gave us, that when society need us the best of us, we were able to pitch in and be part of the solution for something that was impacting the entire world. So the sense of pride of everybody to be part of a solution will take away any needs of time, right? So we were laser focused on getting the fastest but highest quality product in the market so patients could benefit, right? So it really depends on what part of the business you are and the needs of the world, right? At the end, we are serving patients. So we need to make sure that the efforts are aligned to the needs of the patients, right? So there are going to be some times that you have regular days. There are going to be situations that you're going to be demanded. Sometimes I work 18 hours a day, but you know what? It was needed, right? So it's going to vary. There are going to be peaks and valleys. It really depends on where you are. But if you are focused on your goal, on what is the impact of your work in the world, I think it's going to allow you, right, to make some sacrifices and then, kind of rest a little bit with a different type of project. So it's really going to depend.
Thank you for highlighting that, Myrta. Yeah, absolutely. It's, depending where you work and what your current objectives are, it's going to differ. Anna, do you want to share with us just a little bit about, what your experience was coming from academia to industry, and then also just give us a little bit of insight as to what an ordinary day looks like for you? I know you've shared, aspects of your work, but what is it like working in your current role, and what does a day, for our participants who maybe haven't really had the opportunity, to be in an industry setting, what does an ordinary day look like for you?
Yeah, I would say every day varies. There's some days that are very heavy in meetings, so I usually like to look at my schedule a day before, or even like at the beginning of the week, to get a glance of like what I'm doing, or if I'm doing an experiment, do I want to do it this week, next week? So it's a lot of planning, but it varies. So a lot of times it's like, check emails to see if anything happened, during the night, if anybody emailed you, depending on the projects that you're working on. But if not, I already kind of have like my priorities for the day. Usually it's 2 to 3 priorities, no more than that, because then, you don't accomplish them and then you kind of feel horrible that you didn't. And I mean, if you accomplish them and you can do something else, then great. But for me, it's, that planning of, okay, am I working in the lab today? If I am, I have to come in and set up, go take out the reagents from the freezers, start thawing them on ice or put them on the fridge. And then, it takes about probably 45 minutes to an hour for things to thaw. So then I come and probably check emails, or if not, if I haven't finished looking at my Excel sheet for my experiment, I might do that. But I'm not in the lab every day. I might do like an experiment or 2 max in a week. And I think it depends again on the needs. We get study requests. So I'll get a study request and then I have to order other compounds. So it's not like I can go into the lab the same day. It takes a few days. It takes planning. And I look at my schedule to see when I want to plan it. So I like having the flexibility. Like everybody said, I have a family. I have 2 daughters. So sometimes if I have something going on with them, I have to plan my schedule accordingly. And I like that I have the flexibility. I can work from home. I can, whenever I want to, I don't have to report to anyone. At least with my manager, he told me, we're all adults. And as long as you're doing what you need to do, I don't want to babysit you. And sometimes I'll stay late just because I wasn't able to start early in the day. I had other obligations or other tasks to do. So I might be here maybe 6 or 7, but it's not on a regular basis. If the machine breaks down, that's a whole nother story, right? It delays you from getting to your house. But usually that doesn't happen, and you plan. And I like to, if I have to put anything in, I work with LCMS, liquid chromatography, mass spectrometry. I like to set, I already have like my Excel sheet with my layout, and if I just go in, change the compounds, put that in the machine, so that way when I'm going to do the experiment, I'm not delaying myself at the end of the day, because you worked really hard doing the experiment and then staying a little bit extra, like you don't want to do that. But the nice thing is that once I put my plates into the machine, and if I want to go home, I can go home, and I have remote access, and I can finish that at home. If for some reason I didn't get a chance to do it. So it kind of varies in terms of, what I'm doing every day. And then also I'm very involved in different organizations. So, some days I have meetings for those organizations. I have to do things. Sometimes I do that at night. Also, if I want to analyze my data at night, I can do that. So I have the flexibility of like how and when I want to work, for the most part. Unless there's like a deadline, then I'm like, okay, I really need to get this done, like no matter what. So that's kind of how my day is. And I really like it. I like having variety in terms of the work that I do. I'm in different working groups, so I have different responsibilities. I mentor others as well in terms of like the experiments. And, the goal is to, once you mentor someone, then you talk to your manager, like, what other responsibilities can I have? I want to grow. So you have those conversations. Hopefully, be a project rep. So I've been mainly in the lab. I'm working with different working groups scientifically, but I want to impact more like broader within the pipeline. And a project rep, or they call them a PI. You have a compound, a project that you're working with, and you have scientists from different areas like toxicology, pharmacology, chemistry, and you all get together and discuss that molecule, and you have your own expertise, your own perspectives, and you're trying to move that molecule forward. And then once you train others, they can do the work for you. So that's kind of nice that you can, expand your role. But usually, when you come in, you're going to be in the lab. You're going to learn. They want me to be a subject matter expert. And once they start seeing that, the ins and outs, pretty much everything, then that's when they expand your responsibilities. So yeah, the day varies. And I like that. I don't like things to be the same. Like
not Monday.
It would bore me a lot. And I knew, I knew that. I knew that in industry, I would get a lot of variety. So that was like something that was very enticing for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna. I'd like to shift to Maria with a different lens, looking at from a personal perspective. Our participants yesterday had some time to talk about personal strengths. And so just thinking from your own experience, as you've transitioned into industry and in the time that you've been in industry, what could you tell us about the personal strengths that you brought to your role? And have you over time acquired any additional competencies, or do you think a lot of it has relied on the personal strengths? What role has personal strengths played in your success as you thrive in industry?
Sure. So I think I would say my personal strength that I've better developed over time that's important in industry is influencing others without authority. What I mean by that, like some of the panelists have described, you have to work in very collaborative settings with experts in different fields. And even as a project lead, you may not, you're not that person's manager. So you can't necessarily make a person do something. So the way that you influence others to, put forward their best on a team is by, communicating very well and making clear the importance of what you're asking them to do. And I think that's something, that's a skill that I think I didn't develop too much in academia, because you kind of work on your project mostly on your own. You occasionally have some collaborators that, might bring some supporting data, or, you might work with some lab mates, but, you work cross-functionally where, maybe I'm the immunology expert, but, I need to rely on somebody from antibody engineering and somebody that works in the in vivo models, like all of these experts that are at the table. But again, they don't report to me, so they don't necessarily have to do exactly what I say. But I've learned how to develop that skill, and it involves being tactful, being also considerate of others, communicating well. It's kind of complicated, and I it's something that I continue to work on, and it is really important to being an effective project leader. But I would say that's kind of I think it's my strength, and I'm continually working on it.
Thank you so much for that. Maria, I'm going to also add on a question which I've just seen from one of our participants. And the question is with regards to experience. So we've talked about your strengths and what you brought to the role. But, is it necessary for anyone who's watching today to have the experience for a particular role? Or, is it possible for an individual who doesn't have enough experience to actually thrive or succeed in a role? I mean, do you have any advice in that regard?
I would say that I think it's important not to self-eliminate yourself, like meaning don't stop yourself from applying from a position because you don't exactly fill all the job description criteria. I think every hiring manager is going to look for specific certain skills, and they're all going to approach that differently. And the decision's ultimately made by the hiring manager. So I think, if you feel like you have some of the skills that are in the job description and you're interested in the company, or, building your experience, I would consider applying. I think that's one thing that I've learned quite a bit. I mean, when we put forward job descriptions, we put, kind of, what this candidate will be doing. And so, based on that, we list some skills. But again, if, you have something that I think is really valuable and I can teach you the rest, then you will make a really great candidate for that position. So it also, your ability to learn and pick up new skills and things is also important. So don't discourage yourself from applying to a position just because you're not in 100% fit to what it says on paper.
Great, thank you. Joe, can I go to you with the same question about personal strengths? What's your experience been with regards to what you've brought with regards to personal strengths and your competencies, and how much have you gained as you've been in your role?
Sure. And I guess just to piggyback off the first question or the question we just had, experience can also be through internships, like Maria is promoting, as well as through training during your PhD. You can work at a stint for a summer with a pharma company, for example. So I would highly encourage that. And every conference I've gone to over the last year that has brought up this lack of trained workforce. So I think STEM is a field where we need more people, and the more ways you can show that you have some understanding of the skills they're looking for, I think is certainly super valuable here. In terms of strengths, I think, we all typically come from a source of strong technical competency. And that's kind of like a baseline requirement for some of these positions, right? Just demonstrating that you have some understanding of the science that you're going to work in, that you've published, that you've presented this work, perhaps people know you in the field, I think really helps. Or it's kind of, again, this baseline requirement. But then I think communication to me is kind of the most important thing. Like how do you communicate the value of what you've done? How do you communicate to a customer, to a boss, to someone why you're valuable, right? These are things that take some experience, or I mean, for some people come naturally. For others, it's something we need to work on. And I think that's something that I've certainly been able to build out with industry, again, by working with all these different SMEs. Like, how do I communicate biology to a mechanical engineer or to a data scientist? Or how do I communicate our failings to a customer and get them to still be on our side and work with us through these issues? You get so much exposure to these different scenarios that bring together kind of your technical background as well as your personal communications and styles, and learning to deal with people that have perhaps conflicting styles with you, right? So I think that's something that luckily I've been, I think, okay at, and have been able to certainly grow as I've continued to evolve in these different positions here.
Thank you so much. I am mindful that we are coming towards the end of the session. We have just a few minutes, and I do see that we have a lot that we've not been able to get to. I would like to take just a moment here to provide a shameless plug, if I may. So I mentioned that I represent the International Center for Professional Development. We do have a training session coming up, and I'd just like to make sure all the participants, all our SACNistas know, for SMDP Biotech, which is the Scientist Mentoring and Diversity Program, we have a training session coming up June 11th through the 15th, and then SMDP MedTech. These are both programs that provide in-person training plus mentorship, a year of mentorship. And so we're very thankful for this opportunity to partner with SACNIS and to be able to participate in this incredibly impactful session. We do invite you all. April the 1st is the deadline for applications for SMDP MedTech and SMDP Biotech. And just shifting back to our speakers, I know, Myrta, you were a mentor for SMDP. I just wanted to ask, I saw a question that came up and I thought it was just so perfectly timely with your company in particular, but if you could speak just in general for industry, what sort of training can the participants, and I know we only have a couple of minutes here, expect? Like, how does industry prepare you as you transition? Is there any sort of training support that's provided by the companies when you join a company or when you're joining a laboratory, are you expected to just know everything because you're a PhD? And I thought that was a great last question.
No, absolutely, right? I think what is important is your attitude as an individual. You never stop learning, okay? So the day that you stop learning, you stop growing. So when you step into a role, into an industry or wherever that will take you, you will just only know a perspective of what you bring to the role, but you need to be open to learn everything else that is running into that particular group. So at least for Amgen, I will tell you that we provide a lot of training. We call it the onboarding program to make sure staff has the right support to be successful, that they understand that the way that we operate, of course, they're what we call the standard SOPs, and what is the way that we operate for a particular function, given that we are a regulated environment. But we also provide partnership, right? And people that can work with you until you get all the way to your SME level or subject matter expertise. But the important part is that you never stop, learning. So it's in your attitude and wanting to be better and know more, and even not just limit yourself to your current role, understanding the other roles. Because I think a big difference between industry and academia, and I think Joseph touched upon that, in the academia, you're very used to work on your own. In the industry, no work gets done by one person. It takes a village. It's truly the collaboration of multiple functions with multiple expertise. And that is a great learning opportunity on its own, right? Because you bring your own perspective, and then every part of the functions are going to bring their expertise to make the outcome of a medicine that goes to patients, right? So I think there's so much diversity and so much opportunity to learn from different aspects of the business that I never even imagined when I came from R&D and when I came from the academia. So I will say we are prepared to train you. We do have open positions, and I think in the chat somebody posted the career at Amgen, so you can take a look into that. And we will support your career, right, to make sure that you are successful in the industry.
And on that note, just I wanted to thank all of the speakers. What an incredible session. I know that there's so much more that you could all share about your roles in industry, but I hope that this has been an insightful and inspiring session for all of the participants. We highly encourage you to, identify the companies that you, take an interest in, that you feel are best aligned with your interests. Look into trying to find individuals to work at those companies, speak with them further. I know all of the panelists here certainly would be keen to continue to engage with all of you as well as part of this forum. But a big thank you to SACNAS for this amazing opportunity to serve as your moderator. Just once again, Ana Vergara, Javier Zapata, Joseph Valdez, Mirta Altiles, and Maria Muchis. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your names. Thank you so much for being our speakers and for shedding all of the insight with regards to the amazing roles that you have during this session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And best
Bye,
of luck.
everyone.
So do we just close?